I can't remove the mandible from this skull, but I am going to start anterior and work my way back. So we'll start with the maxilla, and this is the palatine process of the maxilla here, both halves, and they're coming together here at the midline. And then right here, the opening behind the two incisors here is the incisive foramen, also known as the anterior palatine foramen. Moving posteriorly, remember that the palatine process forms the majority of your hard palate, and that the other part of the hard palate is formed by the palatine bones. So these are the two palatine bones right here. On the sides of the palatine bones, you have a large opening called the greater palatine foramen. And then just along the back edge of the maxillary bone, you can see what we affectionately refer to as the bat's legs, or the bat's feet, or the butterfly's legs of the sphenoid bone. So these are the pterygoid processes, or pterygoid plates. Here's the other side. And then this is a really nice fully intact vomer bone coming down the midline where the palatine bones come together. So that's the vomer, which forms a portion of the nasal septum. Now I'm going to tilt this down, and we can see that foramen ovale part of the sphenoid and the tiny little foramen spinosum here. You can also see it on the other side. This is that foramen lacerum, that large kind of jagged opening that is where the bones articulate. So you can't see foramen lacerum in a disarticulated sphenoid bone. You have to have the skull. And then moving posteriorly, we've got the occipital condyles here, the occipital condyles. Under those occipital condyles, in this view, you have, and you can kind of see that right there, those are the hypoglossal canals, one on either side. Hypoglossal canals sit under the condyles, and the large foramen magnum of the occipital bone. Now, in this area too, we've got those three, that little triad on the temporal bone. You've got the carotid canal, which is kind of an egg-shaped opening right here that angles medially in the skull. And then if I slide my probe posteriorly, it's in the jugular fossa. And then if I slide the probe medially, it's the jugular foramen, which if I turn this around and you look on the inside of the skull, it sits just below that internal acoustic meatus. So then getting back to here, we do have a portion of that styloid process that's still intact here. A little bit of it did break off, but there's still some of it there. It broke off over on this side. And then we've got the mastoid process. And because we have the mandible attached, you can see the mandibular condyle sitting in the mandibular fossa of the temporal bone.